the Mojo story. Uh, there lots of international players come to India to participate in different sports events. In fact, one sports event that's already underway is in Madhya Pradesh, where uh, women team of Australia cricket team is playing. Now, Madhya Pradesh Minister and senior BJP leader Kailash Vijayvargiya sparked outrage after saying that Australian women cricketers who were molested in Indore should have been more careful, suggesting that they were partly at fault for leaving their hotel without informing the coach or the security. Now, those comments have triggered criticism. Basically, Madhya Pradesh Cricket Association has condemned the incident. The incident involved two players who were allegedly harassed by a bike-borne man on October 23, prompting opposition leaders to question women's safety under BJP government. To discuss more on this, we're today joined by an eminent panel. Let's introduce our guests. We're joined by Madhvan Narayan, senior journalist. Welcome to Mojo Story, Madhvanji. We're also joined by Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Welcome to Mojo Story, Abhijit ji, senior fellow IPCS. Welcome to Mojo Story. If I may start with you, Madhvanji, we have always been aspiring that we should have, big events in India like the Olympics. But when such incidents come to fore, it really shows us in a very bad light and presents the real situation that what all is happening in this country and how safe it is for sports people.
I think we should not look at it purely as a sports people related issue, Zafar. I think there is something very cultural in the way we are doing things. It's not about, let's say, maybe there are some degrees of difference between north and south or east and west or whatever. I don't want to go into that. But by and large, my observation is that we have lost a sense of culture and let me first describe the situation objectively as I see it. Let me take you away from this topic to give you an idea. There was a LinkedIn post which has been storified by a startup founder who's talking about a general fall in courtesies in India. Now, this is not about Indore, this is not about Hindus, this is not about Muslims. This is about general fall in standards of courtesy in public places. People are driving on the wrong side of the road, taking the wrong turn, driving without helmets, jumping signals. Then, if you're talking about bursting crackers, it's one thing. Everything is being made into a certain cultural pride issue. There are children who are studying. There are adults who are, elders, senior citizens. If you're going in a lift, people are, somebody presses the button, the other one doesn't say thank you. There are some people who open the door, the others don't say thank you. So there is a broader cultural issue. We should not, I think recently there was a very angry video by an NRI castigating fellow NRIs for bursting crackers and dirtying the places, Now, what is happening is, let me look at it objectively before coming to the minister's point, because I don't want to make this a political issue. This is a cultural issue. By culture, I mean, I don't, it's not restricted to one region or religion or anything. It's a certain thing that others look at when you're coming in or when you realize when you go out of India. So there is a certain amount of minimum courtesy and standard. Now, to some extent, because we are a country coming out of abject poverty, there's a lot of new money floating around. There's a lot of people who have never had the, occasion to learn manners or the need. It's fine to be sitting in the drawing rooms, air-conditioned places, and talking about tehzeeb. So I'm aware of the fact that some of the manners come with privilege, but we'll have to look at this in the context of this. That is the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is pragmatism. Okay, Now, pragmatism is, I do not really blame the Madhya Pradesh minister, although I blame him. Let me explain how. I feel sorry for him. I don't want to be outraged about it because
Yeah.
uh, what happens is typically people in India are used to what I call Uncle Ji talk. You know,
Yeah.
I call by Uncle Ji talk, I mean somebody who's talking casually in the drawing room saying, Beti, aapko bhi dhyan dena chahiye, bahar ja rahi ho. You know, this is friendly advice actually. But when you're in a position of power, when you're in a position of privilege, when you're representing the country to a larger world, you have to learn some mannerisms. You know, one of the reasons why the British managed to get away with a lot is because even when they do bad things, they do it with a lot of politeness. You know, they say a diplomat is someone who asks you to go to hell in such a way that you begin to look forward to the journey. So that
Yes.
is one thing. So when Indians, well-intentioned Indian uncles, as I picked this up from Gen Z and millennial kind of lingo. You know,
Yeah.
age-wise, I may be an Uncle G, but I support them, not the Uncle Gs. You know, maybe it's my way of feeling cool, but it's also being objective. When somebody points out something wrong, you know, the feminists talk about mansplaining, we have unclesplaining. So we have this whole business of pragmatic advice, which is not a very pragmatic thing to do when you're sitting in a position of responsibility where the entire media is looking at you and the entire world is looking at you. So I have a feeling our ministers and leaders, everybody needs to be, even IAS officers, if you see the recent reports, you know, exploitation of laborers, road rage, showing of private cars with public symbols. You know, even in UP, you can see Bhutpurv MLA, Bhutpurv Vidayak, you know, putting it like a press sticker or a Government of India sticker or an army logo. This is part of this whole what I call the neo-feudalization of Indian culture. That has to go,
Right.
and the pragmatism thing, where the domineering patriarch also becomes a friendly uncle, is part of the problem. So that brings me to the third question, which is protocol. You know, there is there is preening and privilege in the first. There is pragmatism. The third is protocol. Your pragmatism is desirable, but not in a way that violates protocol and assurances. And the
Yeah.
minister should read his words carefully. See, normally these things are done through very gentle travel advisory. So travel advisories can be given. So let's say a
Right.
foreign embassy issues issues a travel advisory to a country. They do it bureaucratically, and some bureaucrats take care of this. The language used is careful. You know, it is advised because of various conditions that all travelers may exercise discretion and seek advice from locals when they are stepping out. Okay. So having said that,
Right.
there is also a need to crack down on, we should not use pragmatism as an excuse for violation of law and decent behavior. And there was
Right.
this famous incident where the car in Haryana or somewhere said that boys behave badly because they eat chow mein, or they say girls dress in a certain way, therefore this is uh, not good. So therefore, this whole business of what they call what the feminists call slut shaming, or
Yeah.
you know, typing white people or a certain kind of dress, or is not what you recommend if you're talking about Viksit Bharat. Viksit Bharat is not just GDP growth. It means everything from health and education to public behavior to Swachh Bharat. There cannot be a Viksit Bharat without Swachh Bharat. And without Swachh
Yeah.
Bharat is not just about clean streets, it's also about good social behavior. You know, one thing I'd like to learn from China is, this whole business of social conduct, where I mean, we are not fans of communism or China in many ways, but some kind of social behavior lessons can be learned from both Europe and China. I would not recommend the current US establishment in that category, although that's also there. So I think we'll have to just let me put it this way. If I were the prime minister or the home minister or the tourism minister of this country, I would ask both the ruling party president as well as uh, some of the personnel department or cabinet secretary to actually come out with protocol lessons for all sorts of people, all sorts of leaders. Just as there is an election commission code of conduct for candidates, there should be various
Right.
codes of conduct. um, Even if it's not enforceable legally,
Yeah.
it should uh, be evangelized carefully so that people get to hear of it. Let me say once again that I do not want to
Right.
politicize this issue. It's not about being
Right.
a Congress minister is equally capable of saying things that a BJP minister does. So let's not make this, for God's sake,
Right.
a BJP
Right.
versus Congress
Let's
or any.
let
All right.
let's hear what the minister said before I can go to you, Abhijit.
हाँ
Uh,
नहीं मतलब देखिए कोई सा भी खिलाड़ी हो कहीं पर भी जाता है, जैसे हम लोग भी बाहर जाते हैं तो कम से कम एक लोकल आदमी को तो बताते ही हैं। खिलाड़ियों को भी इससे मेरा ख्याल है कि ध्यान में आएगा कि अब भविष्य में हम कभी भी अपना स्थान छोड़ें तो हमारी सिक्योरिटी या लोकल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को बता के निकलें, क्योंकि क्रिकेट खिलाड़ी का बड़ा क्रेज़ है और क्रिकेट खेल ऐसा खेल है जैसे जो इंग्लैंड के अंदर फुटबॉल खिलाड़ियों का, मैंने फुटबॉल खिलाड़ियों के कपड़े फटते हुए देखे। हमारे यहाँ वो होटल में कॉफ़ी पी रहा था, हम जिस होटल में रुके थे वहाँ एकदम वो बैठे थे, इतने में इतने सारे नौजवान आ गए, कोई ऑटोग्राफ ले रहा है, एक लड़की ने मेरे सामने चूम लिया उसको, उसके कपड़े फट गए। फुटबॉल का बड़ा फेमस खिलाड़ी था, मैं नाम भूल रहा हूँ इंग्लैंड का। तो कभी कभी खिलाड़ियों को भी अपनी लोकप्रियता का एहसास नहीं होता। खिलाड़ी बहुत लोकप्रिय होते हैं, इसलिए वो भी ध्यान रखें जब भी कभी घूमने जाएं। ये घटना हो गई, ये सबके सबक के लिए, हमारे सबक के लिए भी है और खिलाड़ियों को सबक के लिए।
खिलाड़ी बहुत लोकप्रिय होते हैं, उनको ध्यान रखना चाहिए. That is what he says, Abhijit. Can you make a sense of this?
Listen, the problem here is everyone gets molested out here. It's not just cricket players. You see this
Yeah.
happening. I mean, I don't think there's a single Delhi wala, Bombay wala, Madras wala, Bangalore wala that hasn't seen this happen on the streets almost every single day in some form or the other, right?
Yeah.
And it is culturally normalized. You look at movies, you know, uh, uh, very famous movies where this kind of behavior is what Shah Rukh Khan, Amir Khan, Salman Khan do, going after a girl. And I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm from that generation, I don't know what the latest generation of actors is, but I'm sure it hasn't changed right now either.
Yeah.
One is the cultural thing. The second issue is, what essentially the minister is saying, I don't realize how much of a reflection it was on his own government and their ability to sensitize people to issues like this. Look, Zafar, we've got a real problem in this country that countries that are poorer than us are cleaner than us. Cambodia has about $500-600 less GDP, but they're much
Yeah.
they don't behave the way we are. So this has nothing to do with poverty. Like
Yeah.
my colleague said, this is it is a cultural issue, and the problem is we don't take cultural education here seriously. You're not
Yeah.
taught by your mother or whatever to not do these things. It is constantly this thing, ladke to ladke hi hain. Then Mulayam Singh Yadav said ki uh, jawan ladke hain. Then there was some Khap Panchayat that passed a resolution saying it's because of chow mein. Chow mein ko ban kar do. Chinese food should not be eaten. Uh, these kind of things, I think we need a clear national policy. The problem in India in terms of policy is we confuse punishment with policy. Punishment is not policy. There is something called class education,
Yeah.
which you need to do, which every parent needs to sensitize people to. By the way, molestation happens in Australia as well. I've lived there for about 12 years.
Hmm.
Things happen. But the problem is, it is not as common as it is in India. It is not let off as easily as it is in India. And you have a law enforcement problem that when you know the laws are so gynocentric and a woman's accusation is enough to send you to jail, you still don't fear the law enough to not do things like this. So it's a
Right.
multi-sectoral problem. It is lack of enforcement, it is a lack of education, it is cultural, it and I don't think anybody cares enough about the problem. We all outrage when things like this happen, but we don't care enough to sit and sort the problem out.
Right. That's a very important point. Abhijit, the man, the molester, he was arrested, and then police presented him. Here is this man, he's just limping, and it seems that he has been beaten a lot, and he's just walking away. This is typical that the way that this incident unfolds, the series of events, and then he's shown like this presents India really in a bad light. All of this.
Both the act of the molestation also does, and then the police behaving like common gundas also does. You have to prosecute him and take him by the law. Look, I completely get the argument that the police will make कि भाई आपको पता है how long it takes in the court system. It was better we taught him a lesson and broke his leg and broke his arm than
Yeah.
to put him in the court system. At least it sends a message. See, you can't just accept that, because today what happens to a guilty man tomorrow will happen to an innocent man.
Right.
Right? And we never have a systemic solution for these problems. See, Zafar, we have to understand where a third world country is not based on dirt, it is not based on poverty on the streets.
Yeah.
It is based on third rate decision making, poor policy planning, because you don't invest in human beings. And our policy to nothing ever, historically in the last 75, 80 years, has ever been holistic, a whole of society approach.
Yeah. And that is something that has been lacking for a long time now. But one would expect that things would change. But we don't see such a fast sort of a rapid speed with which the things are supposed to change that's happening. In fact, when such incidents come about, it is very predictable that what happens and the way this man is taken, and then the police break his arm and his leg and then show him to the media. Madhvanti, you want to come in here?
Let me divide this again into three parts. I'll come to your part in the end, because you also showed a tweet from the Australian women's cricket team,
Yeah.
which is even more shameful,
Yeah.
which is saying that they are deleting the this thing because they found that they were being trolled and harangued for something that actually was positive, meaning they were actually highlighting a bad incident, but it was adding insult to injury when you have people who are being trolled and insulted for raising this issue. That is the first one I want to say. So it's a cultural thing that we need to look at. But the second point, picking up from where Abhijit said about policy. In fact, I've become averse to this word policy, because policy also, given the British at culture of civil administration, we seem to have policy as only as documents, whereas policy in motion involves people, holding people accountable, and milestones being defined. As they say, oh, if you're fooled once, shame on me, shame on you. If I'm fooled twice, shame on me, which means you haven't learned the lesson. Are we learning the lesson? Now, that brings me to the point that you raised, which is that there are two aspects of this. Let's be very clear. One is administrative accountability. The other is uh, administrative process. So this business of making this boy limp after getting the third degree treatment in a police station is a gross civil rights violation. That doesn't, I know, if you're not going to be Saudi Arabia or Taliban who ruled Afghanistan, then we have to understand what is due process of law. That is one thing that has to be taught down the line. There may be some winks and nods because you have to be a bit pragmatic. Like I said,
Yeah.
pragmatism involves due process, just as protocol involves due process. Great administration lies in harmonizing pragmatism with protocol. Uh, Now, that brings me to a very important point on which I am very upset. What Vijayvargiya said didn't upset me as much as the fact that 2 days have gone and there is absolutely no action from the national level BJP or the central government or even the MP government. So the point is I will tell you how it works. You have to gently rap these people on the knuckles, as they say in Britain. You have to gently let them know this is not the way you talk, so that they don't make the mistake again. The message has to go down the line across the party and across the ruling establishment, because while I don't blame any one political party, all parties have to do this. They should have internal processes so that when somebody does something wrong, there is a rule book that immediately kicks into play. And well, I have lots of experience in how administrations really work.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that the right way to do it is, if I were a senior bureaucrat, there would be notifications, there will be messages, and there will be a background briefing for the press, which in a whisper way would say that the minister has been ticked off, even if he hasn't been ticked off.
Yeah.
Because that way a message goes out across the board, you know, because in some ways, if you ever been to a serious official meeting, sometimes somebody powerful even raises eyebrow. I mean, that's what Mr. Modi is famous for. He holds forth in rallies to the people. Internal meetings are not allowed. He just says one or two things. His power speaks the rest. So you have to apply it within the party also. The power is
Right.
not meant only for bureaucrats. Power is not meant only for media. Power is also exercised within the party, not just on elections, but on everyday behavior. I would have expected Mr. JP Nadda or somebody to do something and the media to get the message. That hasn't happened. Now, don't say this is tomorrow. If you were to invite me and the Congress government does this, I would say exactly the same thing. Let's be very clear on that.
Right.
It's about process, it's about principles, it's about pragmatism, it's about protocol for peace, if you want.
Right. Abhijit ji, last word to you. The way that this incident should have been picked up and dealt with, as you say, it is not given that much importance. As you said that, molestation, it happens in it is not given this amount serious attention that it should. The cricket team, they say that we have deleted all our tweets now. Now we are not putting out those tweets. It in itself is a big statement.
The problem that it's basically proving that if you complain about something, the amount of abuse what those poor ladies have had to go through on the online abuse is probably even
Yeah,
worse than the harassment. कि आके
absolutely.
सच बोलो and then you are humiliated for talking about it. And in a sense, victim shaming is the classic case. Sorry to use the word, but what is politely called victim shaming is essentially what we call slut shaming. You're calling the person all kinds of names and blaming her for her own this thing. What is the action taken about it? Nothing. And the problem with political leaders is, I fundamentally believe, and unfortunately no party in this country invests in it, that once you reach any kind of leadership level, there needs to be annual classes where political leadership is sent to. The problem, of course, Zafar, here is, if you pass UPSC once, you're an expert on anything. If you've gotten elected to some MLA or even councillor seat, you are, the people, and therefore you are representing the will of the people. The through life, through career education and midlife education are deemed shameful somehow, because if you've finished your schooling in college, you're meant to know everything. No, you're not. Every year there needs to be some kind of orientation
Yes.
classes, a certification process where every member over a certain rank of every party needs to sign off on documents saying this is conduct. I have gone through gender sensitivity training. I have gone through social sensitivity training. I have gone through caste sensitivity training, etc., etc. I'm not arguing for vocal, but it is basic common courtesy, and you'd think parties would actually have the common sense to do this for their own people, so that they don't put their own feet in their mouth.
Right. Uh, Madhvanji, you want to quickly come in before we wrap up? The point that Abhijit was making is that all of us do upgrade our skills. If we don't, then we're lost. Somebody passes a UPSC and then doesn't really care. That is another problem.
I think I use that word. I think you should be displaying it on your screen. We are going through a neo-feudalization of India. Okay. Now, let me be very blunt here. Here, I'm making a slightly political comment, which is that when we talk about Bharatiya Sanskriti and Prachinta and all, we have to forget that we have to say that modern Sanskriti is different from ancient Sanskriti. Old tradition was to respect people, women, but also, keep them in confinement or, under a burqa or a ghungat or whatever. The modern uh, approach is to actually evangelize through the society as to what is the modern notion of cultural behavior is, which, by the way, was there in ancient India also. If you see all our ancient scriptures, this is the land of Kama Sutra. We didn't hide anything. So we'll have to understand this Victorian morality with Indian feudalism being packaged off as Bharatiya Sanskriti is just not on. We need to actually educate people about being free. Bharatiya Sanskriti is not discipline. It's about freedom. It's about individual freedom, freedom of thought, but in a very disciplined way. Disciplined as in the public spaces, you behave in a certain way. And those things are not being done. This has to be done. In fact, I see a political opportunity in this. I mean, sorry to be a bit cynical in this, which is that India's needs, Kerala is already getting out of, it's becoming the first state to get out of complete poverty.
Yeah.
Other states will follow. We are, as a country, entering a post-poverty situation. This is part of the post-poverty problem every country goes through. But here, because of various Asian background and feudal backgrounds, these things are going to be worse. So we have to, it's not as if Europe was born with great culture. They have also gone through some curves. They've gone through wars. So we'll have to actually state this as a matter of, it should be in election manifestos, it should be in HR programs, not just in multinational corporations. It should be there in every day, and there should be checks and balances. There should be, just as there are today CCTV cameras in ATMs and other places, there should be drone cameras sometimes. There should be ways to nail down such cases also. Exemplary punishment is a good thing, but there is no substitute for what I call cultural education, which doesn't happen just in classroom. It has to happen through various, for instance, even, there have been some incredible India ads by the tourism department on such issues. We need to make it down the line. And they have some of these ads, according to me, because I follow the creative process also, some of these ads have to be rude. They don't, because some people don't understand straightforward, simple messages. We have to be creative. Piyush Pandey is not here anymore. He's passed away. He's the kind of person who should have been given this brief. What would you do to deal with everyday misbehavior in India?
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Nevertheless, an important issue. Of course, we wanted to have a discussion on this because this is not an issue that can be taken so lightly. It's an important issue. It speaks a lot about we as a people, and then also projects India internationally in an extremely bad light. Thanks so much, Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Thanks so much, Madhavanji, for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts. And thanks to all our viewers for joining us and for watching the Mojo Story. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.